As we continue to break down this Mavs-Jazz series, we bring in our friends from the Locked On Podcast Network, Nick Angstadt from Locked On Mavs, and the man who created the Locked On Network, the voice of the Utah Jazz, David Locke. Gentlemen, I'll start here. Should it have been a foul on Donovan Mitchell? David, you go ahead and take this first.
You probably shouldn't foul someone who's putting back up a shot when you're up 4, and probably should make 2 free throws. We've never talked about this.
I mean, I can't argue with that point. You absolutely have to hit free throws. They also probably should have bled a little bit more time off the clock, too, in that penultimate Dallas possession. They didn't do that either. Nick, how about from your perspective? Should it have been a foul there on Donovan Mitchell?
I mean, the referees went back and they looked it over and they said it should be a foul. So, I don't know. I think I'm going to go on the side of the referees for the first time in a while in this series.
I got to tell you, Nick, though. Nick, I got to tell you. I watch a team play hack-a-go-bear for 4 minutes straight and then complain that the Jazz shoot too many free throws. That was pretty rich after the game. I thought that was pretty solid. I was impressed by that little gamesmanship that you actually play hack a guy so he shoots 18 free throws, 2 of 8 or 3 of 8 in the final 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and then you complain they shot too many free throws. That was cute.
All right, we're already off and running. I love it. Much more to break down with Nick and David, and we'll do so here next. Welcome back here on Sports Special. The Dallas Mavericks and the Utah Jazz tied at 2 games apiece as the series returns to Dallas for Game 5. And we bring back our guest, David Locke, the voice of the Utah Jazz, and Nick Angstadt from the Locked On Mavs Podcast Network. David, we've been hearing for weeks, months maybe, about the psyche of this Jazz team and how fragile it may be. How important was it that Donovan Mitchell passed to Rudy Gobert for that game-winning bucket?
I don't know if it was important that Donovan Mitchell passed to Rudy Gobert, because quite honestly, that was one of the most grandiose clickbait stories of all time. It was just an annoyance. But the Jazz have been awful closing games. They've blown more 10-point leads in the fourth quarter than any team in the league. They've blown more 10-point leads in the second half than any team in the league. They've blown a lot of them recently. They had the collapse in the bubble against Denver. They had the collapse against the Clippers in last year's playoff. So the fact that they, on 2 occasions in this series, have won close games, in both cases where they lost the lead at one point and then had to regain it, I think is really important.
To that end, Nick, the Mavs were quite good all season in clutch situations. How surprised were you to see Dallas give up a 4-point lead with 40 seconds left, and to David's point, to the Jazz?
That to the Jazz had a little bit of extra mustard on it, Mike. I don't know if David's going to be able to come back from that one. The Dallas Mavericks have been a very resilient team this year. They've come back from more 10-point, double-digit leads than any other team in the NBA. But down to the last 40 seconds, it was an incredible play by the Jazz. Like, everything that could have gone wrong for the Mavericks in that last play went wrong for the Mavs. Mitchell had the miss, then he gets his own rebound, then he puts it back, he gets fouled, and the Jazz also have enough time for the 2-for-1 at the end of that possession too. Then Dwight Powell goes down, misses his 2 free throws. So many things went wrong for the Mavs, and that's how the Jazz had to get a win in Utah. They had to have all those things go right for them. So we're looking forward to Game 5.
I still say bleed off 24 of those 30 seconds if you're Dallas, but that's a whole other issue. David, the Mavs did a really nice job. It was very clearly part of their game plan, has been part of their game plan in this series to chase Utah off the 3-point line. Not as great, though, in Game 4. Jazz got up 35 attempts. What was it about Game 4 that allowed the Jazz to find their way to some more open looks?
I mean, I think this is really huge, Mike, to the series. The Jazz threw only 224 passes in Game 2. That's contextually, that's kind of a weird number. People don't get it. League average is like 280. Jazz were 300 a few years ago. 224 was the lowest number the Jazz have thrown in any game all season long in Game 2. The Mavericks had just hugged the shooters, got the Jazz in the half court, not getting them out in transition, not getting any early action to get the ball moving, and the Jazz became very, very stagnant. In this game, the Jazz did a better job at moving the basketball, but also, interestingly enough, Luka's presence, because the Mavericks do such a good job of making sure you can't isolate Luka defensively, but they do it kind of with a soft double team at times to get the ball out of the ball handler's hands. It forced the Jazz to move the ball more. So interestingly enough, there were some things that Dallas did in that game that forced the Jazz to pass more than they had. That ball movement led to more threes, more catch and shoot threes than the Jazz had previously in the series.
Nick, I think it's fair to say the pressure falls back on Dallas now in a big way. They've got to win on their home floor or else Utah will have a chance to clinch at home in Game 6. This is still a fairly young basketball team. How do you think they respond to the moment?
I don't know if the most pressure is on the Mavs, seeing when the stories are all about if one team loses in the first round, then that team is going to blow up. But if the Mavericks lose in the first round, are they going to blow everything up and trade Luka? No. But if the Jazz lose in the first round,
the narrative is how bad the Jazz are at closing things. I'm sorry. I thought last year that we started to prepare to play the Mavericks when they were up 2-0 in a series. And then we didn't see the Mavericks. We saw the Clippers, right?
If we want to play the Jazz have been so bad this year. The Jazz have been so bad this year. They better not win this series. I don't know if that's a thing you can do when the team has been together for like 5 years. They have way more playoff experience. They have a way more experienced coach that's been way more successful in his career. There's a lot of things going in the Jazz favor still, even though they haven't been as good this year.
I'm just saying that there is a little pressure on Dallas in the sense that they were up 2-0 in a series. This time they're up 2-1. I would hate to see them have to go through. I really just, Nick, it's because I'm loving and caring. And I would hate to see you have to go through the narrative that I've had to go through for the last 12 months about not being able to close things out and things. And I would hate it if that happened to you and you had to deal with that for so long.
Voice of the Jazz carries an awful lot with it, doesn't it? All right, let's wrap things up with your picks. Who do you guys have in Game 5 tomorrow night here at the AAC?
I would be shocked if the Mavericks didn't win this game. Back at home, Luka Doncic in his second game back. The Mavericks have a lot to look at in that Game 4 to figure out and to get their offense back to where it was in the first 3 games. Luka Doncic, I don't think will lose a game at home.
David?
I think fatigue will play a really big issue in this. We're suddenly playing 3 games in 5 nights in 3 non-consecutive cities. That goes for Donovan Mitchell, who's not been great without rest this year. Mike Conley, who wasn't very good the other day. It also goes for Reggie Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith, who lead the league in minutes played. And traditionally, any player coming back from a long time out, the second game's the hardest physically on them because their body's fighting them a little bit. So I think fatigue, and you'll just see it early, whether shots are falling, whether guys have the juice, whether there's any pace to the game. And I think that'll just really dictate where this game heads early on is who has the juice.
Ring the bell, man. We need to do this more often. David Locke and Nick Angstadt from our Locked On Podcast Network. Go ahead.
It's really unfair because Nick thinks that I would do mean and nasty things like fire him if he humiliates me in this setting. So it seems like it's a little bit of an unfair fight.
Nick, I'm sorry we've put you in this position. Nick Angstadt and David Locke from our Locked On Podcast Network. You can hear more stuff like this by finding Locked On Podcast anywhere you get your podcasts.